I think the biggest lie we've all been told is that we're meant to be happy all the time. Of course, be happy. But what if I told you you're actually not supposed to be happy 24/7? Let's get into it. Hi everyone, welcome back to my podcast. It's your host, Anjy. Today we're talking about happiness, and this was inspired by my last video where I asked the question, does money make you happy? So if you haven't listened or watched, go and click somewhere around here or here, I don't know where it's going to be, and you're going to find it. You're going to find the video. You're going to find the answer to that question. But today I'm going to be talking about how you can be more happy and what are the things that even constitute happiness. What have psychologists found that make us happier? Let's talk about it, because I don't know about you, but right now, winter, I could do with a little bit more dopamine. I can do with a little bit more of a, serotonin boost. So let's get into it. First, I'm going to tell you what psychologists found that people have thought about what makes them happy. How have people defined happiness in their own terms, essentially? And it's two words: life satisfaction. So I'm actually going to group this into 5 categories, or rather 5 different components of happiness. And I found this in one of the studies that I researched. So I don't know what study it is, you guys, just Google it. I'm sure you'll find it somewhere. And fun fact, you guys, up until the 1950s, psychologists never studied happiness. They all just studied mental illness. Isn't that crazy? And it wasn't until some guy, just talked about how we can start to study positive psychology, is what they call it, that people started to find a link between well-being and joy and happiness and mental illness. That's crazy. Wouldn't you just have thought it made sense? The happier you are, the less, mentally ill, I guess. Anyway, right, 5 categories, 5 components of happiness. Number 1, positive emotions. Number 2, engagement. Number 3, relationships. Number 4, meaning. And number 5, achievements. So I'm actually going to start off with relationships, being that it's the most important of these 5. A lot of studies have found that. And if you've watched my videos, I've said a couple of times that the quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships. So let's start off with relationships. Studies have found that people who have one or more close friendships, one or more, tight-knit groups, are happier than people who don't have these tight-knit groups. In fact, sadder people with less happy emotions, people that you just would think of as not being the most elated, not being the most jovial, not being the most happy, the most joyful, they actually have less friends. And you can kind of think of it as, is it a causal effect, or is it, is it the chicken or the egg? Are they more sad because they have no friends, or do they have no friends because they're sad people? It's something to think about. But what's even more interesting is that the study found people that are happier spend the least time alone. Happy people spend the least time alone. They spend most of the time around other people. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Like, we're humans. We're literally not meant to be alone. When they used to, I don't know if they still do this, but when they used to punish people with solitary confinement, they found that they got even more and more mentally ill over time, because we are humans and we are social beings. We're meant to be amongst other people. So it makes a lot of sense why, unhappy people, that's the right word, unhappy. I went round trying to think of the right word for people that are not happy. Unhappy people have the worst social relationships and spend a lot of their time alone. So when we try and think about, what we can do to be happier, the first step is to think about the relationships that you have around you, your family, your friends, and romantic relationships. Personally, I need to work on all of them. I can't lie. I need to work on all of them. And for me this year, I think the main one I should take seriously is romantic relationships, because again, another study found that people in romantic relationships tend to be happier than people that don't have romantic relationships. And it makes sense because of the companionship, right? You would assume that people in romantic relationships just have that constant companionship. They have someone to talk to. They have someone to, hang out with all the time. Someone that's just there for them. The number of close relationships you have, the number of close friendships you have, does not really matter if the quality of that relationship or friendship is useless, if it's not strong. Because what actually determines, or what actually makes you get that benefit from the close relationships, is that you're sharing with them. You're sharing your feelings, you're sharing your fears, you're sharing your emotions. It's that, community that you're building with the people around you, and that kind of closeness. The closeness really matters when you're talking about happiness. If you have friends and you don't like, you have very surface level relationships, that literally you're just as unhappy as someone that has no friends. That's what studies have found. So don't just go around collecting random people and calling them your friends. Quality of your friendships, the depth of your friendships actually really matter. So if you're with a partner or friend and all you talk about is like, I don't know, games and work and something that's not really deep, not that you should make your friends your therapist or make your partners your therapist, but it's really important for your well-being, for your stress relief, and for just your happiness that you share with them, that you share your lives with them, you share your fears, your emotions, your feelings with them quite often, and that's what helps you be more happy. Isn't that like relatively easy to do? Well, first I have to find me a man, but isn't that relatively easy to do? Share with your family, share with your friends, share with your partners. That's number one. Right, moving on to number two, positive emotions. So this is particularly interesting because this is actually dependent on your personality, which makes me think that there must be a link between happiness and genetics, because a lot of our personality is kind of dependent on genetics or biology. Maybe biology is a better phrase, but yeah, that's a study for another day. I didn't do research on that, but you will see why I'm saying that now. Right, so happy people on average experience more positive emotions than unhappy people. That goes without saying. But what's really interesting here is that happy people, the happiest people, still experience negative emotions. The difference is that they don't dwell in it, like they don't stay in that negative emotion for too long. They don't spend too much time in that space. And in fact, when they do feel ecstatic, like when they feel heightened emotions, they don't stay there for too long either. So that makes you think, right? Saying that you want to be happy all the time, it's just not sustainable. Like it makes no sense, because even the happiest of people have times when they experience negative emotions. The only difference is they have a way of regulating their emotions to come back to baseline, and so that they have a more sustained level of positive emotions. The psychologists actually said, but this is the phrase that they use rather, that people that are the happiest have a functioning emotional system that allows them to be able to appropriately respond to life events. So when bad things happen in their lives, they know how to regulate their emotions in a way that they feel the emotions, they feel the sadness, of course, because they're humans, but then they just go back to their regular positive emotions. And the reason why I said that it's actually linked to your personality is that happier people have a more agreeable personality. They're more agreeable, they're more friendly, and they have less neuroticism. They're less neurotic. Now, if you don't know what it means, neuroticism is linked to like high in emotional instability and anxiety. People that just get upset all the time and angry all the time and, irritable. That's a big word for neurotic people. And it makes you just think, right? If people that are happier are less neurotic, they're less anxious, they have less self-doubt, that's a big marker of neuroticism, then of course that's why they're happy. Of course that's why they spend more time in the positive state, because they just feel better internally, right? They don't have that neurotic personality trait on a high level. I think we're all on that scale in some way, but people that are happier are more agreeable and more friendly and less neurotic, which is why I think it may have some genetic part, like I said earlier. But what we can take away from this, I would try and kind of link or tag a solution to each point. With the relationships, of course, I said try and foster more deep relationships. With positive emotions, I think the takeaway is that we should try and do more of the things that make us happy, do more of the things that bring us positive emotions, and do less of the things that bring us negative emotions. And one thing I want to leave you guys with is a podcast called Oversharing. It's by two sisters. One of them is a psychologist or therapist, and one thing she says that I've actually held on to and I've practiced in my own life is sitting in your negative emotions, not dwelling in it for too long, but actually feeling it. She always says breathe through the discomfort, and that has stuck in my head for the longest time. No matter what the discomfort is, whether I'm mad or angry or just like too hot or too cold or irritable in whatever way, I just tell myself breathe through the discomfort. Literally, I just like, okay, I'm uncomfortable right now. Even if you can say it out loud, do it. Do it if you're in a place where, there's no one around you, so you don't look like you're a bit cuckoo. Just try and breathe through it. Like, okay, I recognize that I'm actually uncomfortable right now. I recognize that I'm too hot, but it's fine. It's actually okay. And you would find that with time, your body kind of regulates. Have you noticed that when you go to a cold room, your first instinct is like to shiver? You're shivering, you're like, oh. And then with time, you just forget that you're cold. It's not that you forgot that you're cold. It's called homeostasis. Your body just naturally tries to regulate itself, and your body temperature just sort of lowers to the cold temperature of your environment, and you just feel less cold over time. And it's kind of the same for our emotions. If we just feel it and just sit in it, it just dissipates. It goes away. So that's number 2. Let's move on now to number 3. Number 3 is engagement. So this is the things that you spend your time on. These are the things that you do in your spare time, or just you do with your day. And one thing that is particularly important in terms of like your happiness and your well-being is exercise. So physical exercise is one of the most pivotal components of well-being. In fact, in people that are depressed, they usually recommend some form of physical exercise because it's been found to alleviate their depression to some extent. So try and incorporate some form of movement into your daily lives. People that are just like sat at the desk for hours and hours, of course you're not going to feel good. You haven't walked around, you haven't gone outside, you haven't gotten some vitamin D into your body. Maybe supplement that as well if you don't get enough sunlight, if you live in a country that's just like dark and cold all the time. Oh my god, England. Get some vitamin D. And back to engagement. Do some exercises. Do things that make you like bring your passion out. So this study actually found that we need to do the right amount of challenging things that are not too challenging though, but the right amount of challenging that they make us feel interested. It's something called the flow. You need to find a state of flow, which is called intrinsic motivation. The state of flow is when you do something that you feel like you have the right skill set for. So it's the right amount of challenging, but you still feel like you're conquering it. You still feel like you're doing it well. You still feel like you're doing well. You're getting on with it. You're able to do it. Like you're excelling at it. That is particularly important. Fill out your time. Some people think that if they never had work to do, they will be like, ecstatic. That'll be the best day of their life. But that's not really true. Because if you think about it, you might just be really bored and like just bored out of your mind that you start to feel depressed because you have nothing to do. So having something to do is actually a huge part about being happy. It's just a matter of whether or not what you're doing is something that you actually want to do or you're being forced to do. Moving on now to number 4, which is meaning. So these are the things that, like it says, bring meaning to your life. But one particular thing I want to highlight here that studies have also highlighted is religion, religious beliefs. People that have religions or some sort of spirituality actually have a little bit more happiness than people that don't. And this is because they do something that brings them purpose. It brings them meaning. It brings meaning to their life. So think about Christians, for instance. When they gather in church, there's that, again, community. They're spending time with other people that have sort of the same, belief system, the same like thoughts and the same things you like to do. You get what I'm trying to say? And they kind of just like foster this environment of people that just support each other. And because like a lot of these communities also do charity work, they're giving to other people, which is another thing that's found to make you happy. And when you do things for other people, it actually brings you more joy. I read somewhere in some study a while ago that when they gave people money, don't know if I read or watched it, but when they gave people money and told them that they can either give it away or spend it on themselves, the people that gave it away actually felt better about themselves than the people that spent the money on themselves. So meaning, find something that brings meaning to your life. It's sort of why a lot of people like journaling, because it gives them time to reflect. And it's the same for spirituality and people that have religion. When they pray, it's their form of meditation. It's their form of like, just drilling it in a little bit and try and just, remove the outer, thoughts and just go into their own soul and think about things that they want and things that are important to them. And they believe in something. They believe in a higher power. I don't want you to underestimate what that can do for you. I am religious myself. myself, and I don't really like to say I am religious because I'm not like the stereotypical religious person. I don't go to church, but I also believe in God, so it's a strange place to be. And honestly, I can say for myself that times when I just like, maybe I needed something so desperately and I've just prayed to God for it, or I've just like, there's just that joy in listening to uplifting gospel music that you feel, and that joy is intrinsic. It's coming from inside. It's not coming from anyone else or something external. And I can tell you for a fact that brings me happiness. So if you don't even have a religion, just something that you can look up to, if it's the universe, or if it's even your family. Find something that brings you purpose. If it's your job that brings you purpose, that's something also that you can hold on to. If it's your talent, if it's your gift, something that you can just make something of, that gives meaning to your life. Right, we're gonna move on now to the final one, number 5. This one is achievement. Like, you would assume the act of getting something, the act of achieving something that you set your mind to, and you've achieved it. So whether you're getting a new job, you've completed a task, you got your driver's license, you get engaged, you get a promotion at work, you get pregnant, you have a baby, that jolt of dopamine and that excitement that you feel from getting these things, from achieving things, that's also a component of happiness. Those moments that you actually feel ecstatic, those heightened emotions are also important to your day-to-day happiness, to your day-to-day well-being. Now, something important I want to leave you guys with, it's a term called happiness training, and it's how I genuinely feel like we can be happier, or we can train ourselves to be happier. Now, what I've concluded from this is that you should determine the source of your happiness. Determine the things that bring you joy, the things that really intrinsically bring you joy, that are not particularly reliant on external things. Determine those things and then work on the skills, or work on how you can incorporate more of those things in your life. I say skills because building relationships is a skill. You need to learn how to speak to people, how to communicate with people, how to be more extroverted in order to even make friends in the first place. So that's a skill you can start working on, because again, the quality of your life is dependent on the quality of your relationships. So things that you can do that from now on, from this moment, if it's a bar of chocolate that's going to make you happy in this moment, that fits in one of these 5 categories. I'm trying to think of which categories it makes sense the most for. I guess you could say positive emotions, for sure, positive emotions, because you're doing something that actually just like brings more joy to your life, because chocolate gives you dopamine. It's science. It gives you a dopamine boost. Listening to music, just do more of the things that make you happy. Do more of the things that keep you in that state of positive thinking, in that state of positive emotion. If it's religion you want to look into, do that, because that's one thing religions tend to also encourage: hope. They give you hope. They give you that positive mindset. It's like, what did they say? Faith is believing in things that are yet to be seen, or something like that. And if it's the universe you want to get into, if it's crystals you want to get into, something that just gives you that bit of hope, something that just gives you extra reason to be happy. Book more time in with your friends on the weekends to hang out. I need to do more of that myself and not spend all my weekends editing videos. But just do more of the things that really and genuinely make you happy from the inside. It doesn't always have to be intrinsic, of course. You can buy a new car to give you another boost of dopamine. You can look for a new job, you can get a new partner, get a new man if your man isn't making you happy. So I hope that with this, you guys have just gotten that little bit of just knowledge, a little bit more. That's my goal with this podcast, to just impact a little bit more neuroscience and psychology into our daily lives, and just to improve our lives, to make our lives better. And again, if you haven't seen my video about how money may or may not make you happier, then click here to watch. Bye.